Hey, honey, how you doing? Welcome in. I'll give it another couple minutes and I'm going to shut it down. Yeah, if you guys want to say hi, feel free. I'm just starting this channel up, so, you know, I'm trying to do what I can do. If you want to chime in, say hi. Well, well, I was gonna do an Ozzy discussion, Ozzy chat about his albums, but another time. Give me give me 1 minute, and I'm done with it. You know everything. You know everything I know about Ozzy already, so it's not even worth it anymore. Hey, Goat Metal Show, how you doing, brother? I appreciate you coming in, man. I was just gonna shut it down. Goat Metal Show, Mrs. Metalhead's my fiance. I got. She's my. she's my. She's my voice behind the scenes. I appreciate you coming in. I was just gonna do a little discussion about Ozzy and break down his discography and everything. I got another video that I'm gonna be putting up probably after this one. I did a little pre-record of like a 1991 death metal thing I did. I thought I saw you go on. I wasn't sure. I was going back and forth between the computer and my collection and everything. I gotta check it out. When I'm done with this, I definitely gotta check it out. Well, let me get started with this. See where it goes. All right. People know I'm a big Ozzy fan. I grew up on Ozzy and all the craziness that was Ozzy. um, Ozzy was one of those guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Awesome band. Love these guys. Incidentally, they're supposed to come out with a new record next year, I believe. I think it's next year. I I know they've been working on different things with them. Um, Guys, you don't know, big Ozzy fan. Grew up with all the nonsense and craziness of them. Prior to Ozzy being Ozzy, he was in Sabbath from 70 to like 78. I believe it was in that range. Um, and then he went on to form his solo project. There's a lot of, you know, infighting with Sabbath at that time. Um, I think Sharon had a lot to do with it, to say the least. Um, gotcha, brother. Definitely, definitely. Go to go to iTunes and um, what you call it, Bandcamp. I know they're on there. iTunes has a bunch, and there's also a bunch on YouTube also. Robert Kaninsky, how you doing, bro? I appreciate you coming in. Yeah, but definitely, um, Coach, definitely check them out. They're they're even on here too. Definitely. Um, Ozzy started his solo career in '80. You know, when he was in a Sabbath, a lot of things were going on, a lot of infighting. I think a lot of things with Sharon, Ozzy's, you know, alcohol got out of your hands, to say the least. Um, his drugs, which a lot of, back then. And I think Ozzy wanted to do his own thing back then. Um, there was a lot of stories going on, you know, between Ozzy, Sharon, Bill Ward, Iommi, that whole, you know, thing with Sabbath. Um, Funny story. Everybody remembers the bat incident with Ozzy. Well, the bat wasn't the only thing that he bit the head off of. In it was 79 or 80, right before he got his big solo contract and solo deal. He was at CBS Records when the first record label that signed Ozzy. Well, there was a dove supposedly either flying around or sitting there. Ozzy thought it was fake. He grabs the dove, bites it. He thought it was stuffed, and it wasn't. Yeah, mind you, he did this right in front of a record exec, big shots. They're going to sign his contracts for his albums. So yeah, not only did he bite the head of a bat, he also bit the head of a dove, and also urinated on the Alamo. Yeah. Ozzy had his share of legal problems, legal troubles, to say the least. I mentioned this before, from a couple of streams. Ozzy and Sabbath were among bands that were blamed for a lot of stuff. Much like Jessica Control, my brother, how are you doing? Mr. Crowley, yeah. Thank you for coming in, brother. I appreciate you, man. Yeah, so he not only did bite the bat, they have a bat, but he also bit a head off a dove in '82, or I'm sorry, '81. Incidentally, 2019, they did like a 36 or 37-year anniversary of the incident when he bit the head off the bat. Well, it was a plush toy. Some of you guys might remember this. I remember seeing it when it happened. The thing for it, I laughed. It was a plush toy and shit with a bat. Well, the head was velcroed on, so you could just take it off. They made quite a few of these damn things, but it was like the 37th anniversary of it. Emelina, how you doing, honey? Welcome in. How are you feeling? Yeah, so but Ozzy had his share of issues. Ozzy had his share of lawsuits from a lot of different people, organizations, you name it. Anything ranging from suicides, taking their own lives, things along that line. A lot of the people, families of these people, tried saying that Ozzy's music was possessed. It was leading them to do things. The whole 9 yards. Sabbath was also in this because Sabbath was considered a cult band. Sabbath was considered demons and evil and everything, which, a lot of people listening to him could say that. If you don't know, Sabbath's original name was called Earth. They didn't like the name because it didn't fit them. Well, there was a horror movie called Black Sabbath from like the 60s, I think it was, 50s or 60s. That's how Sabbath got their name, Black Sabbath, from that horror movie. Great horror movie. Check it out. It's an old one. I love it. I have a I think I have it in my DVD room. Yes, Boris Karloff. I was just going to say that. The legendary Boris Karloff. One of the best writers, producers, creators of horror movies ever, in my opinion. But that's how they got their name. They were involved in a lot, lawsuits and things like that. A lot of times they did pay out. A lot of times, judges said you can't blame the music for what these are is what happening to these kids, which is true. They've tried it with Priest, they tried it with Slayer, they tried it with Sabbath, they tried it with Maiden, you name it. They've tried it. Wasp, Exodus. It's yeah. So they've had their share. Ozzy's done a lot. Ozzy's been through a lot. What I'll do, I want to get into his discography. I've been into Ozzy even before he was an Ozzy. I've heard him first from from Sabbath. His first album, it's not even an album. It's more like I call it a intro to him. Came out in '80, entitled Blizzard of Oz. This basically has some of his original songs, some cover songs, and some Sabbath songs on it. So this basically was giving, people a look to see who he was, This was leading up to, the iconic Diary Madman album, which came out in '81, I believe it was. I think Ozzy leaving Sabbath at that time was a good thing for him. It let him be him. Yes, all the infighting with, Bill Ward and Iommi and all them, and Geezer for that matter. It almost hit a spike, and Sharon was involved in it. Din, how you doing? Thank you for coming in, honey. I appreciate you. Yeah, this one had Revelation Mother Earth on it, Steal Away the Night, I Don't Know, Crazy Train, D, Suicide Solution. So this was like an intro for Ozzy into, people that were accustomed to seeing him in Black Sabbath. One of my favorite tracks on here is, Mr. Crowley, Crazy Train, Suicide Solution. Another good one. Fast forward to '81, that's when Diary of a Madman came out. One of my favorite by him. I know a lot of people go for Bark at the Moon, that classic Ozzy. This album was a really, really good album for him, I think. I think it showcased, that other side of him, where he still had that evil look, needs to say about him. But, a lot of lead singers that go on their solos, that come out of a big band, usually they tank. They can't get off the ground floor with it. I think Ozzy, at that time, he had, the fans of Sabbath that loved him in Sabbath already, on board with him, that were waiting for his albums to come out. Much like Ronnie James Dio, when he was an Elf and Rainbow, when he went to Sabbath, people loved it. They knew who Ronnie was. Then Ronnie as everybody knows, had his solo career. Sabbath had a number of lead singers. You had Ian Gillan, you had Ozzy, you had Dio, you had a number of lead singers, but everybody wanted Ozzy back. Ozzy didn't return. Ozzy did come back to the band in the 90s for a short stint. They were doing a number of reunion tours. I saw one in like 92, 93 when they played here in the city. They played with Morbid Angel and a couple other bands at L'Amour's. I think it was L'Amour's. It was L'Amour's or CBGB's. I saw him at on that tour. I seen Ozzy. I can't tell you how many times. I tell everybody, Treating my love, how are you doing? Hey, she's awake. Welcome in, David, coming in, honey. I appreciate you. I tell everybody that wants to see Sabbath or see Ozzy, my opinion, when you see one, you see the other. I seen Ozzy, I can't tell you how many times. I seen Sabbath, I can't tell you how many times. Ozzy does Sabbath songs when he's just doing Ozzy. And same when he was on tour, when he was doing Sabbath, he was doing Ozzy songs. So, is it great seeing both? Yes. Patrick, my brother, how you doing? Thank you for coming in. I was fortunate to see Ozzy young. Granted, the band that opened for them stole the show. Some band named Metallica back in 86, 85 blew him off the stage. So, yeah. So Ozzy had a wake-up call then. But getting back to Diary of a Madman, there's not really bad tracks on this. I call this his debut album, not Blizzard of Oz, because Blizzard of Oz, like I said, it had some songs that were his originals, but the rest were covers and Sabbath songs. You had Over the Mountain, my favorite off the album, Flying High Again. Absolutely love that song. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, Believer, Diary of a Madman, the title track of this record. This dropped in 81 on Epic. I think this propelled him. This propelled Ozzy. It got big with fans, but there were still fans back then that, missed him being in Sabbath. Granted, Sabbath was doing great, with Ian and all them. Sabbath put out some great albums with Ian Gillan. I'll give them that. And even after Ronnie left Sabbath, they were to put out some pretty good albums with Sabbath. So Sabbath fans, myself included, we're happy with it. Cleo, welcome in. Thank you for coming in. His next album, Barking at Moon, this is the one that rubbed me a little the wrong way, mainly because of what they did to Jakey Lee. For those who don't know, Jakey Lee was in Ozzy. He was in Ozzy this album up until 87, I believe it was. Jakey Lee did not get no credit for this record. On the original copy of this, Jakey Lee did not get no credit for even being on this record, which I'm still blown away by that. I think Jakey Lee was a phenomenal guitar player, phenomenal musician, still is. Jakey Lee went on to form Badlands, which put out 3 great albums. Also, Jakey Lee's in Red Dragon Cartel. He's been in them for a few years now. But Bark at the Moon, I think, got Ozzy notice for the title track, Bark at the Moon. That crazy werewolf video that he did back there in 83. Bark at the Moon, You're No Different, Now You See It, Now You Don't, Rock and Roll Rebel, another great track off this record. Waiting for Darkness. Just, back in 83, 84, you had, a ton of bands that were just coming up, that whole hard rock scene. And people knew Ozzy from Sabbath, like I said, but there was a lot of people that didn't like Ozzy, didn't like what he stood for. That, he was demonic, he was evil. That's why it's called the Prince of Darkness, and they kept going back to the bat when he bit the head off the bat, and also when he bit the head off the dove, and then not to mention taking a leak on the Alamo, which got him banned from playing in San Antonio for a number of years. And I mean a number. I believe it's been lifted. That's far as I know, because he's played there. But yeah, he got banned from playing. He got banned from playing in San Antonio and parts of Texas for a long time. And I mean a long time. I mean, you pee on the Alamo, you're just asking for problems. Those Texans take that Alamo quite seriously. I mean, Mrs. Metal, like I tell you, when we lived down there, I wanted to go there just to find out if there was a damn basement in the place. I figured Pee Wee Herman could ask, why can't I? Anyways. Oh my God. Yeah, Joseph, my brother was a huge Sabbath fan. That's how I got into him. I did the same thing. I've always been an Ozzy fan. A lot of parents back then didn't want their kids listening to him, but I always say, without Sabbath, you wouldn't have Ozzy. Without Ozzy, you wouldn't have Sabbath. It comes hand in hand, and 50 some odd years later, 60 some odd years later, you got, Sabbath, the icons, creators of this, in my opinion, and Ozzy's still going. Granted, Ozzy's not going to be touring anymore. I'll get to that in a minute. Sabbath hasn't put out really that much except for a couple live albums, box sets. But the next album, Ultimate Sin, this one made Ozzy even more of a household name, especially on MTV. And of course, Ozzy was already in magazines, MTV, but once MTV hit in that 83, 84, 85 range, Ozzy was on there a lot, whether it was good or bad. Ultimate Sin, I think it's one of his best. You had Shot in the Dark, Fool Like You, Killer of Giants, song Never, which is an absolutely amazing album, song. Lightning Strikes. This really wasn't not a bad album for him. I think people had to get used to it, that he was going more mainstream. Yes, mainstream with Ozzy. Back then he wasn't mainstream, Yo, Ange, how you doing? Thank you for coming in. I think this just started pushing people, or getting more people into him, because he was hitting more of that mainstream crowd back then, especially after all that thing that happened with the Alamo, buying the head off the dove, buying the head off the bat, Secret Loser, actually amazing song. Thank God for the Bomb. That was a song about the war and everything. Another one that Jakey Lee was on. He was on like 3 of his records. There's a lot about Jakey Lee that there were stories about him. There was rumors about him and Sharon having, you know, on again, off again relationship, whether it was good or bad. Shortly after that album, Jakey left. Basically, he got kicked out. Story saying he just left. He got kicked out. He had arguments back and forth. I think it was a combination of both, because Sharon back then, Sharon was the boss, much like she is now. She's been Ozzy's manager for God, most of his career. There was a good 2-year period between Ozzy's albums from that point. A lot. They were doing the that Hunger tour for over in the third world countries, where all the rock musicians got together, because they had We Are the World with all the pop and new wave artists come out with that song, and everybody thought, oh, metalheads can't be like that, they have no heart, but you had a few of the top metal musicians back then, Ozzy included, Richie Sambora, Halford, Lemmy, Dio, a whole host of popular metal, lead singers, guitarists, what have you, put together a song, and that's when people started to say, okay, maybe they're not all that bad. Metalhead's been getting a bad rap for decades. It's something we expect in a way. The next album, the Ultimate Sin was Jakey Lee's last album with the band. He went on to form Badlands and a couple others. 88 dropped, I think, one of the most well-known but underrated albums by Ozzy, No Rest for the Wicked. Great album, great production. I remember when this album dropped. I remember I was like 13, I think. I remember I wanted this album bad. I remember I bought it, or I got it as a gift or something. Top to bottom, there's no bad tracks on this album. I think this is one of Ozzy's most underrated albums by a long shot. You had Miracle Man, you had Devil's Daughter, Crazy Babies, which everyone knows Crazy Babies was that first single off this record. It had that video, the little dwarfs, they were called, they're jumping around. My favorite song, well, one of my favorite off this record, Breaking All the Rules, Fire in the Sky, great power ballad, Tattoo Dancer, and my favorite, Demon Alcohol. I loved how Demon Alcohol was more up-tempo for him, a little bit heavier than his past few as Ozzy. Very melodic. This is one of the first to feature Zakk Wylde on guitars. Zakk was with Ozzy Ozzy's still with Ozzy's band. Or Zakk is with Ozzy, is still with Ozzy. Zakk did it for like 87 to like 92, left for a little bit, came back in 01, was with him for 09, left for a little bit to do his side projects, Pride and Glory, and then my favorite band by Zakk, Black Label Society, which incidentally, Zakk is putting out a new album with Black Label Society sometime next year. I can't wait for that. Getting back to this record was spun a lot on MTV. Like I said, 80s had a thing with MTV. They would put all the main stuff, like all the mainstream stuff on, the Ozzies, the Quiet Riots, Bon Jovi, Cinderella, things along that line. A lot of people didn't like having Ozzy on there because they never knew what Ozzy was going to do when he was in the studio, you know. But this album, I think this one, I believe this is one of his certified gold records. I'm most positive about it. I know it sold quite well when it first came out, and it still does. This one really started to propel him further, into his career, further into that mainstream. Yes, Ozzy was still considered fairly unknown, believe it or not. This record helped propel him because it grabbed more. It had grabbed more listeners, grabbed more fans, and it had more of a friendly sound for people, especially for MTV. Granted, he was on every magazine from here to China by this time. There was a few that people questioned, as he was touring like excuse me, he was touring like crazy for a good 2 years on that record. In that time, there were a lot of things that happening. Incidentally, one of my 82, I skipped right over this. 82, Randy Rhoads passed away. The legendary Randy Rhoads passed away in a plane crash. There was also rumors about Randy Rhoads and him, and Sharon. I think Randy was a phenomenal player. For those you don't know, before Randy was in Ozzy, he was in a band called Quiet Riot. The one that sing "Come On, Feel the Noise," "Slick Black Cadillac," "Mama, We're All Crazy Now." He was in that band before he came to Ozzy. Another guitarist gone too soon, and I mean, there's no telling what. Yes, exactly. Joseph Tron, exactly. Yeah. One of my favorites. I saw videos of him. I read books about him. Even now when I see videos of him, back then, I get chills. Just, so young. Not even. I don't think Rhoads even scratched the surface back then of what he could do or what he was capable of doing back then. Rhoads had his own sound. A lot of guitarists try mimicking it. They come close, but there's only one, Randy Rhoads, always will be. It's a shame. Plane crash. I know there was a lot of talks, a lot of questions about what happened with that plane crash. Some say it was bad weather, faulty engine. All I know is they lost one of the pioneers, one of the greats, ever. Who's gonna? Oh, guys, real quick, selfish plug. I don't care. Ange, if you like these, the C4, they're sugar free. I like these better than Monsters. They're real good, sugar free, and taste really good. There was a few years difference between No Rest for the Wicked and the one that I think really put Ozzy over, and it got Ozzy even bigger. No More Tears. This came out 88. This one has, almost all the hits, from him. Road to Nowhere, my favorite track of this record. Mr. Tinker Train, Mama, the iconic Mama, I'm Coming Home ballad. Incidentally, Ozzy Osbourne did not write that song. Lemmy from Motorhead wrote that song for Ozzy. That song was dedicated to Sharon Osbourne. So that's a Lemmy song. Lemmy from Motorhead wrote that song, not Ozzy. That song was dedicated to Sharon Osbourne. Because they were going through some things, and he was traveling a lot. She wasn't there all the time. So Lemmy and Ozzy were best friends for many years. They did that song Hellraiser that's on, I believe it's this album it's on. I'm pretty sure it's on this album. But they did Hellraiser together. They each covered each other's song. But yeah, Lemmy wrote that song, Mama Coming Home. There was jokes about how Ozzy smoked up all of Lemmy's profits, and Lemmy drank all the profits up from that song, and smoked up all the profits too. This album, 91, you had No More Tears, Mama Coming Home. I saw them on this tour. It was a big tour for them. I say it's one of Ozzy's best. You know, a lot of people got into that album. It had all the tracks on it, all the big hits for him. You know, surrounding that album. You know, it's one of the best albums. It's one of, I think, Zach's best albums playing for him, in my opinion. Yeah. They're supposed to be releasing a collector's thing for Crazy Train. I don't know when. It's been in talks for a while now, but it's supposed to be a 24 gold plated train with Ozzy standing on it, and then releasing the song with it and liner notes, the whole 9 yards. I don't know if that's ever going to see the light of day. That's definitely a thing I would definitely want to get. But yeah, the next one is Osmosis. This came out in 95, I believe. 95 or 96, so something in that range. This one, I call this one the more melodic Ozzy. He cleaned it up a little bit and from past albums. The song that everybody goes to on this album is Perry Mason. I love that song. I love how he sings it. His vocals on this album are some of the best Ozzy vocals I think I heard on a lot of his albums. Zach is incredible on here. I think this is the one with Castillo on drums, I believe. No, I'm sorry, Perel. Yeah, James Perel was drummer on this. I think it's guitarist. I'm sorry. This got a lot of airplay from this record. MTV took off with it. VH1 had him on. You know, almost every magazine wanted him on the cover for this one. The heavy power ballad, I Just Want You. See You on the Other Side, another monster power ballad by him. My Jekyll Doesn't Hide. I love that song. The song's Tomorrow. there's just so many great tracks on this record by Ozzy. You know, a lot of people, again, you know, questioned. You know, you're more mainstream today now than ever. What's going on with Sabbath? At that time, Sabbath was doing its own thing. You got, I think Ronnie did like 4 records at that time because he came back and did the one with TV crimes on it. I got it over there. So yeah, Ozzy was doing it. Sabbath was doing their own thing. Ozzy was just taking it off from here with this. This is also about the time that there was a running joke going on. You guys remember that movie? Don't tell mom the babysitter's dead. Well, there's a line in there that says, Lemmy and God fighting who wins. And, you know, people answer God. Well, the running joke says, you're wrong. Lemmy is God. Ozzy tried copying that slogan to make it his own with Ozzy the God of Darkness or something like that. Well, it was going back and forth for a while, and no shirt came out like it. Yeah, but him and Lemmy shared a lot in those 2 albums. They were best friends, very best friends. Lemmy even said, you know, between him and Ozzy, all the drugs and alcohol they did on their careers, you know, it's amazing that they're still going. You know, who would have thought 2015 we lost Lemmy, but Ozzy's still going. It's like, you know, but I'll get to that thing about Ozzy in a minute. Basically, he was asked last year if he's going to do another tour because of his recent album. He said no more tours. The man can't even stand. All the drugs, alcohol, everything. You know, his career is finally caught up to his body's breaking down very badly. It's a shame. I wouldn't mind have seen an Ozzy maybe one more time. You know, but there's always talk about him putting out a new album, not touring on it, just putting out a new record. So, yeah, with Ozzy, you never know. That's how I look at it. I get these all mixed up now. I got these all mixed up now. Shit. Okay. All right. Next one came out 2001. Again, there was a period of time where no touring, but at that time he was doing. That's when Ozfest really first started. The first Ozfest was like 98, I believe it was. I went to every Ozfest from 98 up until 2009. I think it was 2010. Yeah, that's what he was doing between the. That's why there's so much gap. You know, there's times he was not doing well. Times he fell off the wagon. Next one, Down to Earth. This came out 2001. This one was a more sobering album for him. A little bit heavier in a way. Much more melodic. The drums on this were I mean absolutely perfect. Zach, again played some of his best. This tour, this album, this tour, I think this tour grossed I think just over 5 million at one point, and I think this record is certified gold. Yeah, it gets me through Facing Hell. the great song Dreamer. Part 1. Song Junkie, which I absolutely love that song. I think it's one of the best songs on this record. Black Illusion. Can You Hear Them? Just so many tracks that people wouldn't have absolutely, that they were used to hearing them, but from Ozzy, there was no turning back for him at this point. I think because he was getting so big with doing the mainstream albums like he was doing it, like a more melodic feel, a little bit heavier. There was a gap between this one. The next one was Undercover. It was like a combo, like a cover type album. The next one it came out in 2007. And by this time, there were numerous changes in the band. Like Aldrich wasn't here for a little bit. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Neil Peart was in here for a half song, basically. That's one thing with Ozzy. And Randy Castillo. I'm sorry, that's who. Randy Castillo was also, I believe, on this one and the one before, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was on No More Tears, I believe it was. No More Tears. This one came out in 2007. It was the Black Rain album. This album sold a lot, and I'll tell you why. Not only because it was Ozzy's comeback album. This one, he had put tickets in here, free tickets for Ozfest. So every digipack one, and I believe the jewel case I'll do also included a pass for Ozfest that year in 2007. So whoever bought the record got a free ticket to go see Ozfest, basically. And that Ozfest was probably one of the highest grossing ones. My favorite Ozfest is 2004. I think it was the best Ozfest, next to probably 98, 99. The one in 2004 was off the chain. It was Ozzy let us, the fans, pick basically who we wanted on Ozfest. Because for a long time, Ozfest was so commercialized. You had these mainstream bands on there that people didn't care about going to see. They were always on MTV, always known. A lot of fans didn't want to go see them. And then there was bands on there that should have not been on Ozfest, in my opinion. There was one band, it was a rumor of this, I don't know how true it was, but I sort of believe it. You guys remember the band Cold? Shit. God damn. Hold on, guys. Fuck. Sorry about that. Oh, shit. Where that came from. There's a band called Cold back in early 2000s. Son of a bitch. Oof. Let me. Hey, Kara Squirrel, how you doing? I didn't see you come in here. How you doing? There's a band called Cold back in early 2000s. Some of you guys might remember them. They're not really around that much anymore. Rumor has it, Sharon Osbourne asked Cold to be on Ozfest. Cold said no. You're going to say no to Sharon Osbourne? I said, are you out of your mind? Basically, if you tell Sharon Osbourne no, and you're in a band, and she asked you to come on, well, Cole hasn't been around that much. You say no to the boss, the queen of metal, in my opinion, you're bound to lose. You're probably not going to be around too much longer. A lot of people laughed about it. But yeah, they were offered, they asked them to be on Ozfest. I forgot what year it was. It might have been 08, 07, something in that range. Cole said no, because they were doing other tours or whatever. Which, yeah, I know plenty of bands that were on Ozfest that were doing side tours. For example, Slayer. They were on Ozfest. They had off dates. 06, they played in Maine. I went to the DVD recording of Still Raining. They had, I saw them. I saw Slayer that year. I saw Slayer 4 times in like a 6-month period. I saw them in Connecticut. I saw them in Massachusetts. I saw them in Jersey. I saw them in Maine, and I saw them down in Virginia. So about 4 or 5 times, all like a 6-month span. 3 times in the same week, basically. But yeah, bands jumped off tours, and Cold just felt like they were too big or too good for him. Well, yeah. But getting back to this one, Black Rain, you got free tickets in here. You can just bring it, you got in, This one, it's a good album. It's not one of my favorite by Ozzy by any stretch. I think this one, he tried reinventing himself as, the true Prince of Darkness, that maniac guy, the madman, devil's favorite demon. It wasn't a real bad one, but I just didn't like it too much. There's a few good songs on this record. I Don't Want to Stop, the title track, Black Rain. Trapdoor was another one. It wasn't like past Ozzy's, past records by Ozzy. I think it lacked a lot of thought. I think it was pushed because him touring so much. Ozzy was used to putting out an album every couple of years, but then it just started to come, touring, album touring. I just think he ran. I just think he started to run out of gas. I know he had a couple of surgeries back then. He also fell off the wagon quite a few times. And then, of course, he was doing that Ozzy show that was on, that was on MTV for a while. Hold on, let me catch up with this. Yeah, Patrick, she was the boss. Still is. I love her. I love Sharon. I really do. But I understand she wants what's best for Ozzy, what's best for them. But at that time with Ozfest, you had the biggest festival going each summer. Next to Hellfest, which is an all hardcore metal show. festival. Next to the Vans Warped Tour, which I thought was a joke tour in my opinion. But some of the bands that they were bringing out on Ozfest, a lot of them didn't want to go. Like a lot of fans, there was the Ozfest in 04, it was 06 with Slayer and Dimmu Borgir and everybody. It was heavy. It was a metal one. And then the one with Maiden blew me away. A lot of fans were saying, okay, you're having 30 some odd bands. You're starting this show at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. What bands are you going to put on at 11 o'clock in the morning for 25 minutes when the main stage doesn't start for another 6 hours, So they had one stage that was rotating continuously. Then about, I'll say 12, maybe 1 o'clock, that's when the main stage started showing the bands. So people would go in there and just sit down the entire time, get in their seat, just, get out of the sun, get out of the weather, and come on, you had over probably about averaging 15, 20,000 people at each show. They just didn't, factor in, what bands the fans wanted. RFD, no. I agree with you to an extent. Sharon was always in the family business. But see, what I'm talking about is when Sharon took over with Ozzy, Sharon has always been in power. Always. Sharon has always been Ozzy's manager from day one. When they formed Earth, when they were in Sabbath, Sharon was always in power, regardless. I'm not talking about her kid era. I'm talking about when her and Ozzy, her as a manager, as a business manager, as a tour manager, putting together all his tours. Sharon was in charge of everything. That had nothing to do with her father. No. This had nothing to do with Sharon's parents or I'm talking about strictly with Sharon and Ozzy. Sharon was in charge of everything. Sharon had power up to wazoo. Big time. Sharon's type manager and promoter, basically, of Ozfest, where she knows she could grab people. She knows she's going to grab the audience. I think that's why Ozfest started to phase out. Like, I think the last one was like 2012, 2013, something in that range. I know the last one I went to was like 2010, right before I had my right before I had my back surgery. Actually, that was the last one I went to. Now it's like you have. I think that's when Slipknot, the Slipknot tour fest thing took over, and Sharon was still part of that for a while until they basically, she backed off of it. Now, she's still his manager. There was my fucking internet. Can you guys just give me a 1 or 2? My internet just jumped. All right. Thanks, Patrick. After Black Rain, the next album was like 3 years after that, 2010. Again, Ozzy was going through a lot of things. Personally, business-wise, the tours, everything, the constant TV promotions. When Scream came out, I think Scream was a very, very good album. It returned to Ozzy. Um, to Ozzy being him in a way. Um, there wasn't really like one grab um grab song off this record. Um, I know people loved it when it came out because it was like 2-3 years in between albums. Again, Ozzy was doing major touring for 2-3 years in that span. So, you know, he even said he's not going to be back then. He even said, between touring and everything, he doesn't have time to get back in the studio like he wanted to. Um, the title track, Scream, Soul Sucker, Digging Me Down, Crucify. One of my favorite was Fearless off this record. Which they only did I think they only played that song like maybe 2-3 times ever. Both live and they had like a documentary that song was in for a little bit. This wasn't not a bad record for that time. I think it did mark Ozzy slowly going away. He was starting to feel the after effects of touring so much, of being on the road a lot. After a while, being that age, being so much pain for the majority of his life because of all the things he did back, when it started to catch up to him. If you notice, there's from Scream until Ordinary Man, there's a 10-year gap. I know he was doing a lot of some book signings, doing different exercises, cardio things, traveling more. I guess he was doing, trying to find himself, just taking time with his family. I know they moved. I think they moved from California to, I want to say Texas, I believe, or something like that. I know he was with his son. He was helping his son out, Jack Osbourne, get up his record label going, which I hate to say, but it didn't really take off. As far as I know, Jack's still doing it. I know he was dealing with issues with his daughters. A lot of issues with his kids. I know a lot of fans, a lot of people were saying that his kids were just feeling like that they could do whatever they wanted to because they were an Osbourne. Jack Osbourne was trying to put on a festival or something. It tanked. I think 2 years into him trying to do it, it tanked. Nobody wanted to go on a tour. Nobody wanted to go on a festival. I think it had a lot to do with who he was. I know Jack Osbourne, being the son of Ozzy and Sharon, I think he was expected to do more, especially in the industry. I just think he couldn't handle what comes with it, even with Sharon being right there. They were on some show a couple weeks ago. Him and his sister, I forgot his sister's name, seem to be doing good. I know she got married to some star or somebody, like a rugby player or somebody. She's doing her thing. My hat's off to him for putting up with, going through everything that they went through. with Ozzy and Sharon and everything that, Ozzy's health, the health scares to, you know, not be trying to stay out of the public eye more because they were in the public eye so much of their life. And then when the Osbourne show came out on VH1 Classic, where it was back in early 2000s, everybody swarmed to that show, and you saw the real Osbournes. That was about the arguments, the infighting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Jack can do going forward because I know he still has bands that he was supposed to produce way back. So that's gonna be interesting to see. As for Ozzy, he's not touring no more. I got a couple more, then I'm gonna get into his touring thing. The one that came out 2020, Ordinary Man. This wasn't a real bad album. I didn't like the song he did with Post Malone. I didn't like that song. Don't get me wrong, Post Malone isn't that bad of a musician, performer, but you're supposed to be the Prince of Darkness. You must be this big name. And this album, it was good, but it wasn't great, as everybody thought it was going to be. Charlie, yeah. She was the, as they called her, the adopted black sheep person, daughter of the family. She did make a couple of appearances on a few of those shows. I know that, but no, she didn't want no part of it. She did appear a couple of times. She didn't want to be in the limelight. She didn't want to have the lights on her, the cameras on her. And I think she is one of the main reasons why Ozzy is still going today. I think she stepped in a big way to help Ozzy, to help the family from self-destructing, which the Osbournes were headed down that direction again. Yeah, she was nothing like them at all. In a good way. She had her own private life and she wanted to keep it that way. Which there's a lot of bands like that, a lot of musicians that have kids that don't want to be in the limelight, don't want to be on camera, don't want to have, a camera over their shoulder 24/7. That's exactly what Ozzy had for, 60 some odd years of his life, just about. He was the main attraction. He was the main, that main person. He was the Prince of Darkness. He was the madman. I think Amy didn't want her to be. I think Amy didn't want to be known as the girl whose father pissed on the Alamo, bit off the head of a bat, and then a couple years before that, bit off the head of a dove. At his first big contract signing. So yeah, I understood that. I still do. I understand it perfectly. Why she didn't want to be involved in it. Big time. Get back to the album. It wasn't a real bad album. It wasn't a great album. It got great reviews. I know that. It got great play on the radio, and Sirius XM was pumping this out like it was pancakes when it first dropped. Straight to Hose, great song. The song Ordinary Man that he did with Elton John, believe it or not, it's one of the best songs off this record. One of the best songs. Under the Graveyard, Scary Little Green Men, and then he did the song with what's his name? Holy shit. Post Malone. I'm sorry, Post Malone. It's a Raid. I had to play that song back a few times. The lyrics to me, sound like a childish lyric. Not putting down Post Malone, not putting down Ozzy, but you put out these incredible songs for 65 years of your life, and now you're putting out a song that sounds like a fucking nursery rhyme. It's something that didn't click for me there. And then he did one with Post Malone and Travis Scott called "Take What You Want." Not a bad song. It's an improvement from that song he did with Post Malone just before this track. Like I said, I think that album, Ozzy tried, finding himself again, tried reinvent himself, and then the last album they did, Patient Number 9, this came out 2022. It's not a bad album by any stretch. I like this album. I think they could build off this record. Patient Number 9, Immortal, Parasite, No Escape From Now. One of my favorite was Evil Shuffle. Nothing Feels Right. You see it a lot on this record. A lot of Ozzy's friends, especially from Sabbath. You had One of Those Days he did with Eric Clapton. Another amazing song that they did. A Thousand Shades they did with Jeff Beck. They did Parasite that Zach Wild joined them on. Tony Iommi was on a couple times. Wasn't a bad album. I wouldn't mind seeing him record another one similar to that. Don't just call it a career. There was past albums that that they put out, like Best Of, Just Say Ozzy, The Ozman Cometh, which was like a best of him, and there's a couple songs from Sabbath on here. My favorite one is tribute to Randy Rhoads' album. I think when Randy died, it took a lot on Ozzy and the family, as well as the industry. He's one of the best. Getting into what I say about Ozzy's health, about a year ago, they were planning on doing a tour. They were going to call it One Last Run, and that was going to be it. Well, his doctors, his physicians, family told him they advised against it. Yeah, I have that over there. I got on this dude. I got a vinyl over there. Do you have the Swirl vinyl by any chance? Because that Swirl vinyl is collectible. Just give you a heads up. It also has a V on there also. The doctors advised Ozzy and his family against doing it. With how bad Ozzy's bone density is right now, it's not good for him to even go, far away, let alone jump around on stage like a madman like he's used to doing. He's talking about doing one or two more albums to call it quits. He's even talking about doing a Sabbath record. As far as that, I don't know how that's gonna pan out. Ozzy's health isn't the greatest, not by any stretch. It hasn't been great in quite some time. Would I love to see him do one more record and one tour? Yeah. Like I said, I've seen Ozzy so many times. I've seen Sabbath so many times. I would love to see one more tour with him, with a lot of his excuse me, past musicians that were in his bands. You know, whether it's Sabbath or with Ozzy himself. Hey, brother, Coach, how you doing, man? Welcome back in. I was just about finishing up, but welcome back in. Guys, the Gold Medal Show, great streamer, much like I do. He has an awesome channel. He's also on IG, too. Would I like to see Ozzy do that one more time? Yeah. Will it happen? I doubt it. We've lost, too many great musicians to things. I would say for Ozzy, if you do one more album, a couple more albums, fine. Do a Sabbath, do an Ozzy album, fine. As for touring, I would leave it alone. I would just drop an album. If you do something from your house, whatever, But as for a full-blown tour, his doctor said no. I'm in Lower Hudson Valley. Just about 40 minutes north of the city. Yeah, so, Ozzy's been one of my favorites for a long time. As I've seen him dozens of more times. I've seen Sabbath dozens of more times. I would like to, like I said, I would like to see, him do a tour with past musicians from Sabbath and from Ozzy and some of his best friends. Just get him to do a jam, whether it's belting out classic Sabbath songs from his era, or belting out and playing Ozzy songs. Send him out on top. Don't overdo it. Don't overstay your welcome. You know what I mean? He's been around. He's been doing this for 60 some odd years now. I think it's time to say time out. I think it's time to say your health comes first. Just pass that torch, to the next generation. Let the music stay. Let people live through you, live through your music. And let's face it, love him or hate him, Ozzy put out some of the most incredible tracks, incredible records, was part of I think, two of the most influential bands to ever do anything to start this. From that first note of Black Sabbath back in 78, I think it was 77. Oof, my God. No, actually 74. Jesus, my God. That first note of Sabbath, to the last note of Ozzy. Go out on top. Don't overstay your welcome. 60 some odd years and you're still on top, Ozzy. You're doing something right. Your health is a lot more important. This comes from somebody who's dealing with health issues right now. Without Sabbath, there is no metal. My opinion. I said that years ago. I'll say it right now. Without Ozzy, without Sabbath, there is no metal. Sabbath started this shit that we love, that I'm into, that I have a passion for, 50, 60 years ago. Exactly. He's been around so long. Yeah, because I might be heading that way in a year or so, if not sooner. Yeah, Charlie, I would love to see him again. Whether it's Ozzy or with Sabbath, I don't want to go up there. I don't want to go to a show and see, see him and then see what he's going through, just like Mick Mars. Mick Mars is just like waiting to break. You know, that's scary seeing the way Mick is compared to see what Mick was just 10 years ago when I saw him. You know, hell, Blackie Lawless now is having back and hip issues. They showed him on here on a recent tour that they were doing over in Europe. Blackie, his back is broke, so they have him sitting down while he's playing. And you guys know how Blackie is. Blackie's like a freight train on stage. I see Wasp many times. You know, I think it's, you know, things are catching up to people now. You know, years and years of abuse on their bodies, years and years of touring, years and years of, you know, going 1,000 miles an hour is coming in like a freight train now hitting a wall. It's going to stop. And, you know, I just want one more, even if he doesn't do a full-blown tour, one album, maybe two, one from Sabbath, one from Ozzy. You know, call it quits. Don't overdo it. You know, your health isn't that great as it is. You know, he had his health scares 70s, 80s, and 90s. Hell, I remember a couple times in the 90s when I saw him, you know, when they go off stage, you could see what they're doing behind there. You could see him doing lines. You can see him doing lines. You can see him popping a pill. You can see him down in a bottle, something backstage, you know, on the corner there, you know? So, you know, I always say the music that was then, you know, should last a lifetime. Not what he did, how they end it, things like that, you know? I mean, I think losing Lemmy at 15, you know, for me, I'm a huge Motorhead fan, you know, I met Lemmy twice. That got me on, you know, that joke. Lemmy and Dio are gone. How the hell is Keith Richards still going? How the hell is Ozzy still going? You know? It's not funny, but it is. But yeah, it's one more album, that's it. I doubt it also, but you know, Ozzy's one of those people with Sharon, you know, they see this, you know, especially Sharon. She sees green, she's gonna jump at it. That's how I feel about him. You know, and I've been a fan of Ozzy since I was knee deep, you know. So yeah, it's just one of those things, you know. Ozzy put out some monumental records with both Sabbath and Ozzy. Put out some insane tracks, you know, that are gonna last when we're gone. You know, I just think his last couple albums, you know, they weren't bad, but they weren't Ozzy. You know, the last one I did, I just talked about, I think it was good, but you know, it's showing the end for him, and I think that was his way of saying I'm done. You know, and Sharon better just tell him stop. Oh, Charlie, and yes, I met Lemmy. I did a stream. It was the Wasp stream I did. 1996. I saw Wasp in Connecticut, a place called Tuxedo Junction. Motorhead opened for him. There was a lot of fight. There was some shit that happened on that tour between Lemmy and Blackie that almost costed them a 20-year friendship. I met Lemmy. Yeah. Chris. I met Lemmy and Blackie all in the same half an hour, for that matter. Yeah. I was doing bottle shots of Jack with Lemmy, Chris, and Blackie. Yeah. Lemmy's the nicest guy. Lemmy bought the entire bar of that venue. shots and alcohol that night. Yeah, I should have shot with him, with Blackie and Chris. Oh yeah, Lemmy's an awesome. Lemmy was never one of those musicians. Excuse me, that turned his nose up to the fans. He was never one of those guys ever. Much like Dimebag. I met Dimebag back in the '90s. I know a lot of people have their issues with Dime and Pantera. Dime was the same way. They always say the great ones die young. It sucks about, especially for Lemmy, Dime, Vinny. It sucks. But he was Lemmy was absolute, uh, polite, down to earth. Share his drink with you. you know, he always said, "Don't do coke, do speed. You'll be good." But yeah, well, listen, I want to thank everybody for coming in. Mrs. Middlehead is making some dinner. I can smell it up here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Subscribe, like. If you like this, please hit that like button. Subscribe. Goat Metal Show. Yo, Ange, Dutch. I want to thank everybody. Goat Metal Show, Charlie, Joseph, Patrick, RFD, Ange, everybody came in. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. I have another video that I'm going to be putting up probably right after this one. It's a pre-recorded one I did. Everybody knows my favorite year and decade in metal is the 90s. My favorite year in death metal was 91. I'm going to put that one up probably later on. Check that out. I pulled a lot of my favorite 91 death metal albums. I'm working on a couple other things where I have them right here. I'm going through everything. I'm going to be doing a long stream, a double King Diamond and Merciful Fate. I'm definitely working on that. I'm also working on a stream of Death, talking about Chuck Schuldiner and everybody. But again, thanks everyone for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and stay hard, stay heavy. Keep that flag waving. From the Metalhead Warrior and why. Like, subscribe, share the hell out of my channel. And like I always say, if you're going to do something, make it count. Bulldog says I'm out.